So as you guys know, if there's one thing I think I do pretty well, it is story for Call of Duty. And most of you who follow this channel follow me for that reason. The thing is the Vanguard story, as I've talked about before, isn't my favorite story in Call of Duty, and most of it is very straightforward, not a lot to it. And then the Season 4 cinematic story trailer came out yesterday, and if you follow the channel, you would know that I didn't make a video on it. And there was a couple of reasons for that. First of all, I had to try to figure out what was going on in this cutscene. Second of all, I had to try to piece it together with the rest of the story for Call of Duty Vanguard, which, as it turns out, wasn't very easy. This cutscene essentially makes zero sense with the rest of the story. What we know about the other characters is essentially dissolved with this cutscene, and there's a lot of questions up in the air regarding it. So, what we are going to do in this video is take a look at the cutscene and then talk about the story that they have given us behind it. I'm going to talk to you about why that story makes no sense, and then I'm going to write my own story for this cutscene, because I think I could do it a little bit better than they did. But hey, that's just my opinion. You can be the judge of that once the video actually happens. So I'm going to stop talking. This is the cutscene. Then we're going to break it down. So as far as the story goes for this cutscene, it is basically separate from all of the other seasons that we have seen so far. Essentially, if we go back to Season 3, what we can see is all of the seasons were based off of Nebula gas, it being released, it doing things, so on and so forth. At the end of the Season 3 cutscene, we of course got the teaser for King Kong versus Godzilla, aka Operation Monarch, but we will put that one aside because that messes up the story enough as it is. In the other seasons, what we see is Captain Butcher putting together more and more task force to work on Vanguard. So as far as that goes, Butcher is the lead, and then these various different task force are being put together in every single season, and that is essentially what in each individual season's cutscene is predominantly about. So then we have Season 4, and the beginning of this cutscene starts out with a chopper being shot down, and we see gold in the back of the chopper. It then crashes, and we see Butcher then running through the forest towards the crash. At this point, we don't really know why, but we can assume he's going after whatever was on that helicopter. Okay, that part is pretty straightforward. Now, we also know that in each season, Butcher puts together a new task force with various different characters. We also know that Butcher is coming out in Season 4 as a character as well. So assumably whoever he is running with is who he is going to be working with in Season 4, aka whatever this new task force is. So up to this point, this makes sense. And then Arthur Kingsley comes out on the other side, and very clearly, Arthur Kingsley and Butcher have some sort of beef going on, or They just both want the money and the gold. Now, it's also important to note that the new characters are on Butcher's side and that all the characters on Kingsley's side are some characters that we've seen in previous seasons. Then both characters start shooting at each other, and it turns out all of these characters have the aim of stormtroopers and can't hit a single thing. Now, as for the reason why this doesn't make any sense whatsoever. We know that from the campaign, Arthur Kingsley was put on Task Force 141 as the leader, and nowhere in the campaign do we find out why or how or by who. However, after the campaign came out, comics were released, and we found out that Arthur Kingsley was recruited to Task Force Vanguard by none other than Captain Butcher himself. So you would think that these two characters would be friendly. And with this, it brings up even more questions because Arthur Kingsley is supposed to be that character that is fiercely devoted to whatever cause he is working for. He is the character that in the comics would not leave to go directly work for Task Force Vanguard because he didn't want to leave his crew to die. He is the character that is unrealistically faithful to whatever he is fighting for. So for him to turn on Butcher doesn't make a lot of sense. On top of this, to do it over something like money or gold makes even less sense. Butcher is very similar. He put together all of these task force and he wants all of them fighting for the good and fighting to, well, stop Nazis. Now, at the end of the campaign, we do find out a little bit that Nazi gold is on the plane and Nazi gold is in these various places around the world. So that part of the cutscene with the gold and everything like that in the new map makes sense. But these characters fighting against each other makes zero sense, especially with no reason actually being written into the cutscene whatsoever. Just all of a sudden, Kingsley and Butcher are at each other's throats and can't hit a single target to save their lives. So essentially, what this cutscene is telling us is that both of these characters went money hungry, gold crashed to the ground, they shot down a helicopter, and both of them are fighting over it. That is the story that they want to be told here, I guess. So, in my opinion, that story sucks, so let's write a better one. Now, I failed to mention this, but the new map, Fortune's Keep, is said to take place in the year 1976, nearly 30 years after the events of Call of Duty Vanguard. And assuming that this cutscene takes place at that point, we are almost at the events of Black Ops Cold War. Also, I failed to mention that neither of our characters look aged whatsoever compared to Vanguard, which makes no sense. I mean, good for them, probably a good skincare routine, but other than that, it makes no sense whatsoever. So in my version of the Season 4 story, the campaign starts out showing us the year 1976, and then the same thing happens where the helicopter is flying over what we can assume is Fortune's Keep and is shot down. We see the gold in the back, but at this point, we don't know what is going on. At this point, we see a disruption in the cutscene. We see some numbers flash up on screen, and we hear the numbers that we hear in Black Ops Cold War.
9, 19, 18, 4, 6, 21.
From here, we can then cut to a scene where we see something similar to Season 5 of Black Ops Cold War, where a number sequence is being set off, we can assume on Fortune's Keep, and we can assume that this is the first testing of the Dragovich program, which is used to brainwash people. We can then keep the rest of the cutscene for Season 4 exactly the same as it is, and assume that this brainwashing sequence is making these soldiers fight for the money as a testing program for Dragovich before the events of Black Ops, before the events of Black Ops Cold War, and then everything still makes sense. I still don't think it's a great story, but it at least ties together the Black Ops story with the Vanguard story and makes Arthur Kingsley fighting Butcher make a small bit of sense. By no means do I think my story is perfect whatsoever, and yes, there's still a lot of plot holes in it, but at least it makes the cutscene make a small bit of sense compared to just guessing at characters' motivations. That's just my opinion, and if you have any better ideas or theories as to what is actually going on in this cutscene, I'd love to hear what you guys have to say down in the comments. But this is my opinion. That's how I would make the story better. If you enjoyed the video, please hit that like button. It helps out the channel. Subscribe if you want to stay up to date on all my videos. And as always, thank you so much for watching. And until next time, peace out.
We are